I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty scared about actually being here. I don't really know how to go about doing this. I don't know where to begin or what to say at all. I warn you now, I'm probably going to ramble on like an idiot. I have a habit of doing that, but I think I need this. I think I need freedom, release. So, here goes. This is my story, but if you're a woman like me, then this is your story too.
I didn't think it would be like this, you know. I thought it would be more difficult, more scary, scarier even. I thought I'd be more scared. Okay, so maybe I am nervous. If I can't even get basic grammar right, I don't know how I'm going to.
They said this would be a good idea for me. Personally, I think it's a load of shit. What good is any of this going to do?
There's nothing to be nervous about, really. We're just gonna have a chat. Nothing major. It's all chill. Chill? No, I think it's chill.
Hi. Well, insert words here, please. Someone. I don't really know what I meant to say here. I planned the rest of it meticulously. I knew exactly how I was going to explain it, but I didn't think about this bit. Introductions. First impressions count.
Okay, so before you say it, yes, I have short hair. No, I'm not a lesbian. I'm a woman and I have short hair. No big deal.
A friend once told me that someone is more likely to take in your opinion if you position it as a story. People don't like to hear facts or political debate, but a story. Now that's something that they can get into. Personable enough to empathise and relate to the character, but not a direct statement to address the issue. It's like the story acts as a shield. There's a platform where you can say how you really feel, but you use the fictional aspect to detach yourself, protect yourself, but also make the people on the receiving end more pliable. A person is always more likely to accept an idea if they think it's their own.
To tell you the truth, I'm not quite sure how to follow on from that. The whole my story is your story thing. I thought it sounded powerful, poignant. Okay, so maybe it was a bit cliche, but you know what I meant? We're all together here. Okay, sorry. Let's just cut the crap. What I mean to say is this is a safe space. Please don't feel intimidated or nervous. We don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. This is just as scary for us as it is for you. Take a moment. Breathe. And when you're ready, we'll begin.
I guess I should probably start by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm 32 years old. I work in a recruitment agency. I'm the secretary to one of the HR managers. It's not a bad job, decent pay. I work with some truly lovely people, and the food in the canteen is really good, especially on a Friday. In my spare time, I like to go to the gym. I'm trained in mixed martial arts, but recently I got roped into joining this pole fitness class with my sister. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not a fan. I have absolutely nothing against it. I think it's great. It's just not me. My sister is great at it. She really suits the whole thing. I'm not really a rhythmic person. I don't flow or hang delicately. I've never danced or anything like that. I'm more of a cross-cut punch combo kind of girl. Not everyone likes that, of course. Not everyone thinks that is feminine. But we won't get into that. I live alone. I had a long-term partner for quite a while, and we did live together for 2 years, in fact. But that ended, and now it's just me. I'm fine with that. I like my own space. I like my house. I like my job. I like my life. Especially today. Today was a good day. Today I am proud. In my classes, we do this move where you kick your opponent in the center of their stomach to push them back, to kind of push them off balance. It's empowering. That's what today felt like.
Today I started a new job. I had the interview last Wednesday. Interviews make me nauseous. Not out of anxiety or fear, it's out of frustration. You know when you go to an interview or training session or some shit like that, and there's always that question, if your friends could describe you in 3 words, what would they be? I fucking hate that question. Nobody tells the truth. It's just a chance for you to big yourself up through the disguise of a friend so you can feign some modesty while you kiss your own arse. Every time I get into this ridiculous line of conversation, I literally have to bite my tongue to stop myself from asking my own question. Because really, it doesn't matter what 3 words I choose. I could pluck anything out of thin air. Honestly, I could take any 3 words out of the dictionary and it would not matter. Sandwich. Sacrifice. Smile. Okay, that escalated. The point is, they don't care what 3 words I use, they've already got their own. And they don't need the luxury of 3 words. They just have one. Woman. And when I realised that, I realised I didn't need 3 words either. I already had my own. I didn't use it, clearly. I got the job. I think I ended up saying something non-committal like kind, friendly and fun. They love it when you say fun. I don't remember the rest of the interview. I just remember getting the call to go in today. And I wasn't going to turn down a job. Girls got to do what girls got to do.
I should probably start by saying I never wanted to learn to drive. Some girls my age did. I just didn't. I knew nothing about cars. I had no desire to learn. My parents made me, of course. Not that I'm complaining. I know how lucky I am that they supported and encouraged me, and I am grateful for it. It's just, from the first second I sat in the driver's seat, I felt like I didn't belong. I was scared. I think the word I used at the time was intimidated. I guess that's kind of fitting, really. If you look at all the chapters in my story, I think they all have a sense of intimidation. It's just as the story goes on, I realised it wasn't the car I had to be afraid of. My first driving instructor was awful. Actually, I tell a lie. My first driving instructor was brilliant. You see, my granddad gave me my first ever lesson. It was late, a Sunday evening. We just finished dinner and watched a bit of telly. He took me outside and said, "Lesson number 1, listen carefully." "Try the door handle," he said. I gave him this look, unimpressed and rolling my eyes, but he wasn't fazed. He told me that this first lesson was one of the most important ever. He was joking, of course. This was all very much his type of humour. not funny. At least not to most people, but the glint of mischief in his eye was enough to make anyone laugh. He always made me smile. I tried the handle. Surprise, surprise, it didn't open. He handed me the key and told me, press the button with a half-open padlock. Like most people above the age of 6, I knew how a car key worked, but I went along with it. I pressed the button. Now try the handle, he said. I did. It opened. Now the car is unlocked. He carried on, making me sit in the car, get out again, close the door, and then lock it. A locked car is a safe car. Always remember to lock your car. None of this was new information to me, but it was cute and he enjoyed himself. I know what you're thinking, that's not exactly a driving lesson. I thought that at first, but he wasn't wrong. That first lesson turned out to be far more useful than I ever thought. What he forgot to teach me was that when you're driving, there's this little button that you press that locks the car from the inside. It's like a little panic button. That button quickly became my favourite. A locked car is a safe car. Remember that.
Safety is a difficult thing to explain. You probably won't get it. You'll probably think I'm nuts, but it's just complicated. Complicated doesn't even begin to cover it. And I know that there are ways where you can. There are ways where you can improvise, pretend that. For fuck's sake. It's just difficult, okay? It's personal, and I don't know what it's like for the others, because I know that there are others. There has to be others. It's like last week, I went out. I only went out to see a friend. My friend Alyssa, she'd been in this show the night before, and she invited me out for drinks with the cast after. I had one drink, and then I was on to lemonade. I had work in the morning, and I knew I had to walk home. It's difficult because a part of you wants to stay out as long as you can, prolong leaving so you don't have to face it. But then you have to think rationally. Emotional turmoil is great and all, but sometimes the safest option is the rational one. So you put aside the dread, knowing that your friends are going to continue to have fun without you. But this way it's a little bit lighter outside. There's a few more people around. You're a little bit safer. Most nights are fine. Nothing really happens. You're walking down the street, head down, earphones in, only one mind. Still alert to the surroundings. One earphone in, one earphone out. Music at just enough volume that you're calm, but not so much that you're distracted. You stick to main roads only, no side roads, no shortcuts. It shouldn't be this difficult. Your body knows what to do. Left, right, left, right. So you're walking down the main road, headphones in, music at a moderate volume, and you keep your head down. Not so down that you can't see. You need a clear view, but down enough that you feel like you could almost be invisible. Not so invisible that a stranger wouldn't come to your aid if you were desperate enough, but enough so that you don't feel like you're sticking out, blending in. You gotta have the right music too. Different days calls for different vibes, different levels of panic, you know. Some days you need something iconic and well known, like from a film, and it just makes you feel powerful. Or if it's a confidence boost you need, something upbeat and poppy is great, and it helps keep the heart rate down too. Some days It's just got to be ultimate cheese. I think I once walked home to the Venga Boys just because. There's the really bad days where you need something emotive. I think when I was 13, I had a playlist of songs that I just really thought got me. You know, the kind of song that you're sat there singing along and then a minute later you're crying your eyes out. And you have to take a moment to be like, whoa, was that song written about me? I don't know why, but on the days where I'm most anxious walking home, there's something about those songs that just, well, it doesn't make me feel safer or happier, I guess. It makes me feel at one with the fear, like a kind of acceptance.
I've been thinking about Erasure. No, not the band from the 80s. I mean, the ease with which something can be erased in this day and age. Click of a button, tap of a screen, a risky text, an embarrassing photo, or even an impulsive remark you sent to that friend who was really pissing you off and you thought for one stupid split second you should tell them exactly why, and then regretted it instantly. It can all be deleted in a matter of seconds, but it's not really gone. Nothing's ever really gone. Any moment, at any time, it could resurface. It's so easy to click delete to try and wipe it all away, but the traces of it will always remain, ready to be dug up. The only thing you can do is pray that the person holding the shovel will be on your side. I guess the same thing goes for memories. You can tell yourself, that's it, I'm moving on now, it's time to let go, that part of my life is over. Click delete. But really, once it's created, we have no control over it. We can try to repress it, forget it, or even accept it and make peace with it in hopes that it might go away. It might even work for a few months, maybe even a year. Maybe you've hit the jackpot and for 15 years you've lived a completely normal life without the thought of it even crossing your mind, without the chains of it tying you down and controlling the way you live every day. Until one day, something completely unexpected triggers the click recover. And suddenly it's back. Back from the back of your mind, ready to become the centre of your universe, and every minute, every second you can't escape. It says no, it never left. Because no matter how hard you tried, it never did. And trust me, I really tried.
As first days go, I guess it was all right. I've worked in 9 different bars so far, and after a while, they all just merge into one. You don't really get a uniform in a bar like you would in Tesco or Asda. It's more of a dress code, and it's usually quite similar in each place. On the bottom, normally trousers or jeans, usually black, but sometimes blue is allowed. Never ripped, and belts are usually okay, never usually mentioned. On the top, some places give you a branded t-shirt or shirt. That's usually the sign of a decent place, although not always. Some of those are shitholes too. If not, then I'll say shirt or polo, sometimes white or black, never too low cut and not too revealing. And if it is white, then better not be see-through. Trust me on that one. It's very good. I always thought it was a bit stupid wearing white in a pub. All it takes is one splash of dark fruits or Guinness, and that's it. Permanent stain. Last place I worked had a slush machine. Remember that summer a few years back where alcoholic slush was all the rage? They were a bit late to the trend. Anyway, all it took was one person to order, and that's it. In the back of your mind, you were already ordering a new shirt. I always felt a bit more self-conscious in the places where they ask you to wear white, especially if they're specified a shirt or a blouse instead of a polo. Tends to be more see-through. And then you've got the question of how many buttons to undo at the top. Too many, and you're opening yourself up for a world of struggle, but not enough, and then you're letting yourself into a series of jokes about being a prude or a nun. Not really sure what's worse anymore. That's the thing about bar work. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but as a woman behind a bar, you gotta prepare yourself for the side effects of serving a bunch of drunks on a Friday night. Sometimes it's easier just to play along. The old men are usually harmless. A cheeky darling here and there never hurts anyone. It's the sesheds that's your problem. You know, the ones that come in every weekend and get absolutely paralytic. That's where the problem lies. It's bearable, though. You've always got the bar between you, and all these years of doing cellar work and pulling pints gives you a bit of muscle to wade in, helping out of them the pints. It's just words, suggestive comments, innuendos, a couple of cheeky stares as I bend down. You know the drill. It's usually harmless. I once had one guy ask for my number 12 times in one night. He was fine. Just had about 8 too many Jaeger bombs. Behind the bar, I've got power. I can refuse to serve him if I really want. Behind the bar, it's all a bit of banter. It's when I come out from it, things change. It's the same with the uniform. In it, I'm identical to everyone else. And there's a limit to what people can say and what they can see. It's when I'm out of it, out in the real world. Things feel different.
Acceptance, I'm not sure that's the right word, you know. Acceptance kind of implies defeat. And that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that we're defeated or that we're giving up or that we're okay with it. Because I, for one, am not okay with it. And I mean not okay with it, as if not the slightest part okay with it, with any of it. I just mean it's an acceptance in the sense of learning to adapt. Not that we should have to, because if I'm honest, I think it's bullshit that we have to. It's just, we want things to change and we're hopeful that they will, but for now we're learning to make do. No, that's too negative. It's more like making the best of a bad situation and learning to get by until things change. You know? Bit long-winded, eh? It's like a coping mechanism, but rather than being on an individual scale, it's across a whole gender. Probably doesn't make any sense. It's just that when I'm listening to those like sad songs, it's like I'm not the only one who's sad or in pain or scared. And you can focus on the dramatic breakup or the heartfelt loss or whatever instead of your own poxy fears. Obviously, I try and avoid it where I can. I walk home in a group wherever possible, but you can't always. There's not always someone there to hold your hand. But there's still the danger trying to hold you back, lurking around every corner. It's waiting for you. So I use the music. I used to phone people. I had a friend once who would phone me every time she was walking home. It became our thing. I'd pick up the phone and be like, "You walking home then?" And we'd just chat. She'd get home and end the conversation, end the call. Sometimes the only time we talk would be when she was walking home. I didn't mind. When I was really little, I was afraid of going absolutely anywhere by myself, even the corner shop. I'd be terrified on the phone to my dad, wishing I was 5-year-old holding his hand again. I'm nearly 21 now. Obviously, I don't call my dad when I'm scared. Not that I wouldn't if it was serious enough. I'm not ashamed of being scared or calling my dad. It's just that I feel I feel I feel more independent. Okay, that's bullshit. I promised myself if I did this, I wouldn't lie. I guess that if I call my dad, then it's like, I'm scared, so I'm calling my dad. When in reality, God knows if I'm being paranoid or anxious, or if there's really something to be afraid of. And if I call him, then it's making it real. So I just try and use the music, focus on something else, and try and power through, you know? Like I said, different days, different vibes, different sounds. There's just got to be some sound. Otherwise, it's just me and the world, and I don't like that. I don't like the world.
I knew this guy at uni. He's the guy I think about when I do that move. I picture his face in every class. I'm not violent, I promise. I hate violence, and I don't hate men. I don't even know if I hate him. I don't do rage and hatred. I just want... I remember the first day that I met him. I thought he was an alright guy at first, a bit arrogant, but that was to be expected at Durham. It never crossed my mind for 1 second that he would be a... I guess it's one of those things, isn't it? It's the 21st century. Equality is supposed to be a thing, right? Or at least that's what they say. But him, it was like he was living in the dark ages, but at the same time, he was living in my house. I'd never met anyone like him. I didn't think men like that existed. I didn't even know people like that existed. I'm not hating on men as a species here. It's the individual that my problem is with. The individuals that inspire fear in a whole population. I'm actually finding it really difficult to describe him. I didn't think this would be so tough. I don't want you to think this is about stereotyping or prejudice, because it's the opposite. I want equality, he didn't. He genuinely saw us girls, the women in that randomly assigned flat, as inferior to him. He saw us as his possessions. You may think I'm over-exaggerating here. I'm not. Direct quotation. You can't get with any of mine if I ain't getting with any of yours. He tried to tell us what to wear. Not that we listened, but it's the fact that he thought he had the right, the authority to control our bodies. There was a girl in the flat who wasn't really into dating. He made digs about how if she changed little things about her appearance, she would definitely pull a guy. He would bring his friends over and tell her which one might be interested. We were defined as sexual objects, but not only that, we were his sexual objects, his toys to control. It sounds stupid because obviously I never listened to anything he said. I didn't do as he told me to. In fact, he barely even bothered with me after a while because I made my feelings quite clear. I don't know, maybe I villainized him more than is fair. I don't hate him. It's not about hatred. I don't even think I blame him. Maybe if given the chance to learn differently, he wouldn't have been such a dick. I doubt it, but it's a possibility. My point is, it's not a personal grudge. I've had years to think about it and try to bury the hatchet. Admittedly, at first I did want to whack him round the head with it, but I've come to a point where I see that this goes beyond him. It goes beyond me. There's nothing that hating him and blaming him can change because he's just one guy. The thing to focus on is why. That's the rational bit of my brain. Doesn't change the countless nightmares of his face telling me what to be and who I am. Still trauma there that doesn't go away. He didn't hurt me, but his actions and his words scarred me more than I like to admit. They created the fear. It's not a fear of him. I'm not trying to get you to raise the pitchforks. In fact, if he ever watches this, I want him to know I think I forgive him. It's not personal. I try not to connect him to those memories, to those fears. His actions and his words back then, when I talk about them, I try to separate them from whoever he is now. I don't know, maybe he's got a girlfriend or a wife and he's super respectful and kind and loving. I'd like to think he is. Because I realise it's not him that I hate. It's the fear. He personally didn't create that fear. He introduced me to it, but he didn't bring it into the world. Which is why I'm trying not to hold a personal grudge. He is out of my life. But the fear, well, let's just say it lingers.
There's different types of memory, obviously. I've been noticing more and more about how our muscle memories influence our secret deleted memories. The subconscious influences our actions more than we will ever know. Even after we've clicked delete, or even things we didn't realise we were trying to delete. The memories that sometimes aren't even ours, stories passed on from someone else. It's different from the others. It's not a simple click, recover like before.
Of course, there are some days that even the music isn't enough. There was one day, it was a couple months ago, I'd started getting into fitness and me and my friend had started this running challenge to help us lose weight. I'd had a long day, so I decided to skip the gym and trade in a treadmill for a good old run. I never really liked running much, but I finally started to find a way to enjoy it. And there's this really lovely park thing just 10 minutes from my house, and it's really pretty. And I don't know, there's something about after a long day seeing the trees and the open air. It's good for you.
It's completely unnoticeable most of the time. Like when your phone adjusts its brightness to the setting around you, most of the time it's completely unnoticeable. And then one time it's really obvious and you have to take a moment and you think, I didn't realise it did that. Or it's like in a bar or a club. You go to the bar, you probably wait quite a while to get served. But eventually you do, and you get your drink, you go back to the dance floor. You don't notice yourself covering the top of your drink as you walk. You don't feel yourself glancing down at your drink and back at your surroundings to make sure nothing happened without you realising. You don't think about it, you just do it.
On the way down the street, I was queuing up music. It was an upbeat kind of day. You can't have anything too slow for running. You need a strong beat to keep you going when your lungs and legs are screaming at you to stop. I had a few dancey tracks, a bit of Eminem, surprisingly good for running, and a couple of classic pop hits to keep the morale up. I got to the start of the trail and I was ready to go. The plan was to start with 2 minutes of a jog and then a minute of a run, and then to add a minute each time. So eventually it was a substantial amount of time. I started my first 2 minutes and I had Ed Sheeran and Camila Cabello in my ears, keeping me going, and my legs were coping okay. It was about a minute or two in that I ran past the first group of young lads. I could feel them staring at me, but I focused on the music, kept going. About a minute later, I ran past an old man with a dog. Music up, eyes ahead. We got this. It was only when I had to stop to walk for a few minutes that I noticed how dark it was. It wasn't dark. If it was dark, I wouldn't have gone, but Suddenly, it wasn't really light either. I mean, really, it wasn't dark. There was light there, but it wasn't daylight, and it was getting dark, and my heart rate kept creeping up. Of course, it was at this point that a guy on a bench that I'd passed started to get up and walk. He was just walking, but he was right behind me, and my heart kept, and my mind was. So I started to run. I started sprinting as fast as I could, trying to put as much distance between me and him as I could. And as I was running, I ran past another man with a dog and another group of young lads. I tried to focus on the music, but I could feel them staring at me, and everywhere I looked, there was someone there, and the beat of my heart was hammering in my chest, and the beat of the music was thumping in my ears, and my lungs were screaming at me to stop, and I couldn't breathe, but it wasn't because of the running, and it was so quiet. I hadn't realized because of how loud my music was, but it was such a remote area, and there was no one around, and anything could have happened, and no one would have been there to. No one would have seen or even heard if I'd cried for help. So I ran. I ran all the way home until I could lock the door and collapse in a heap, trying to control my breathing. I think I managed 6 minutes out there until I decided to stick to the gym after that. In fact, I dropped out of the challenge that night, sat on the sofa with a big bar of chocolate and a pizza. I haven't been running since.
It's like our brains are automatically programmed to make excuses. We're always in defense mode. Even if you haven't got your own secret deleted memory, you've heard of someone else's, be it a friend or a news story or a Facebook status. Subconsciously, you're aware. And you're scared. We're all scared and we don't even fucking know it. I always knew we were influenced by technology, but I think our minds inspired a lot of technology too. Computers and programming. Behind the screen, there's a million things going on. Hundreds of processes to go through in a split second, but all you see is a screen. You type one letter or click one button, and to you, whatever you were trying to do is instantaneous, but behind the scenes, there's a million things going on that you didn't even think about. A subconscious.
My first real driving instructor was nothing like my granddad, though. My first real lesson was a train wreck. I'll be the first to admit I was a bag of nerves, but I thought the job of an instructor was to calm those nerves. He never did. He just made things worse. It was the way he would talk to me as if I didn't have a brain or a heart. I don't think he quite understood that, unlike cars, people have feelings. It's funny, really. You know that saying, you can tell a lot about the way a man treats a woman from the way he treats his car? Let's just say he wasn't a gentle driver.
It's strange though, like at what point do these ideas become imbued within our subconscious? When does the world become something to fear? When does it all change?
There was one lesson that was worse than any other. Friday morning, I just finished a lesson at college and had a free period where we'd scheduled the lesson. I didn't want to go. I dreaded every lesson, but that day I was really not feeling it. I got in the car and I remember it vividly. I could smell him. He had this aroma around him. He always smelled like he'd just walked out of a pub. When he talked, his breath smelled like cigarettes and beer. I hate beer. His breath wasn't as bad as his eyes, though. He had this look. It's difficult to describe. It wasn't hatred or disappointment, more of a general disdain or disapproval. Whether it was the jolt of the car as I stalled because of my nerves or the shakiness of my voice when I asked a question. When I was in the car with him, I just felt scared. And when he wasn't giving me that look, that's when his eyes would wander. On this Friday morning, I remember I was wearing a V-neck fitted t-shirt. I'd got ready in a rush and I'd been to college. Normally for a driving lesson, I always wore something baggy. It was as I was walking to the car that I realised my mistake. As we were driving, I could feel his eyes on me. It got to the point where we were reaching a T-junction and I could feel his eyes burning into my chest. The smell was everywhere and his foot was tapping. I could hear his breathing rattling away. And in that moment, I just wanted to slam my foot on the brakes, get out of the car and run. I didn't. Instead, I waited for him to tell me where I was going. He didn't. I could feel my hands shaking on the wheel, his eyes, the smell, the tappy foot, the sound of him breathing, the sound of my heart pounding. We reached the end of the road. I was still waiting for some direction. My eyes were fixed on the road ahead. His eyes, I don't even know where his eyes were anymore, but they were never on the road. I slowly came to a stop. And without even looking at him, I said left or right. Left. And off we went.
My sister's a teacher. And once a week there's a meeting about cyberbullying or leaked photos being sprawled across the internet. When I was in school, it wasn't that bad. Or at least that's what I thought, until I started thinking about it. You know, we just didn't have the technology. The systemic sexism was still there. I mean, it wasn't always there. It's like there's a phase you go through where suddenly everything changes. Year 7, everyone's friends, innocent and kind. And year 9, it's suddenly who's sleeping with who. And sex is the centre of everything. Girls have to be feminine and attractive. And those innocent friendships turn into relationships which change from week to week. I had this friend, a guy. We'd been friends since we met in school, both the same tutor group, all the same classes. We didn't really hang around together much outside of classes, but in lessons we'd have a really good laugh. Then the phase came. Conversations around the science table became games of Snog, Marry, Avoid or Would You Rather. And this one day, some other testosterone-fueled ball of caffeine asked him whether he'd get with any of the girls on the table. And when he got to me, he said, I don't think I could ever get with her. I think if I hugged her, she'd snap. She's like a little twig. A stick. That was the first time I had a reason to be self-conscious about my appearance. The first time I ever hated my figure. The first time I felt defined by my sexual value.
He never actually, nothing ever. He just gave off this vibe. He made me nervous. And not just because of that. He was an arsehole of an instructor. He spoke to me like crap. He made me feel like crap every time. After a few months of lessons, I asked him how I was doing, and he basically fobbed me off and told me I was an awful driver and that I wouldn't pass any time in the next year. Just the confidence boost I needed. I cried after every single lesson. I hated driving.
So much pressure. We all made mistakes when we were young. We all did things to fit into the boxes they told us. You know, They tell you we're this, and then you act like this, and then the next day you're trending on Twitter. I guess these days there really is no such thing as erasure. I know some poor girl might have thought she clicked delete only to find out she's gone viral the next day. It may seem like it's only small, minute details. Playground banter, kids being kids. But you never forget those first exposures to objectification.
Eventually, I told my mum just how much of a crappy teacher he was. And she got me in with a different instructor. She was lovely. I passed my test after 2 months.
You can click, delete, edit, undo, hit backspace as much as you want, but once the damage is done, it's irreversible.
I think the first time my body was sexualized, I must have been about 12. I was on holiday with my parents. I wore a bikini. 12 years old. I was still a child. But that didn't change anything. I had tits. I had the trace of an arse. I was tall, so I looked a little older than I was. I shouldn't have had to think about the way I bent down or the way I sat. I shouldn't have had to pick out the dress that was a little bit looser because I didn't want the older boys seeing anything. I was 12.
You can click, delete, edit, undo, hit backspace as much as you want, but once the damage is done, it's irreversible.
It's because of him that I cut my hair. I was just so mad about being told what I could and couldn't be, about how I was supposed to act and look. I told myself it was a rebellion against the system. I don't know what I expected. I think I thought it would feel empowering, sticking a finger up to the stereotypes, and for the first few days it did. I loved my hair. I was happy. Until the hate started pouring in. A few personal favourites. You look like a boy. Oh, you were so much prettier with longer hair. Why did you do that? Maybe you should go heavier with the makeup and dress a bit more ladylike so people know you're a woman. Dyke. Lesbian. Fucking weirdo. And of course, how could I forget? I preferred how you looked before. The feeling of empowerment was short-lived. The hate came time after time, relentlessly. In trying to rebel against the system, I just gave them more reasons to come after me. In attempting to avoid being treated like a sexual object as a possession, I became a discussion point, an example of what was wrong. They still find something to sexualize because they are just that desperate. When I first started my job, my boss tried to pay me a compliment about my hair. He said, "It's different."
Even after I passed, I still hated driving. I had a black box, which meant I had to stick to the speed limits. Which, if I'm honest, I don't see why people hate so much. It just means I have to follow the law. It shouldn't be that difficult. I didn't mind sticking to the inside lane on the motorway. I didn't mind being overtaken by all the fast cars doing 90. I was pretty chill doing my own thing, driving safely. I never minded motorways or dual carriageways because there's an overtaking lane. It's designed for that reason. If someone overtook me, it wasn't personal, just driving. They'd use the lane and leave me be. I always felt alien in the outside lane. You know, if there's a lorry overtaking a lorry and you move out, I felt like I didn't belong there, stuck at 70 miles an hour. It's not the speed of the fast cars that I was afraid of. It's the looks, the silent shouts muffled by frames of glass and metal as the man behind mouths off about how slow I'm going. It's when it becomes personal. Story time. It's Thursday afternoon. I'm driving. There's a silver Peugeot behind me. There's 2 lads inside, 2 men. But on this mini dual carriageway on the way towards the big roundabout heading out of town, I'd already braved the 20-mile-an-hour road and made it safely on my way. No beeping, no panic. I was calm. The speed limit is 50. I'm doing 50. Well, actually, my speedometer says I'm doing 51, so really I'm doing 49. So I'm doing 49. I know some people feel the need to do 70 down here, but it is a 50. It's not like I'm going slowly. I've got my music on, going at 49. For a moment, I'm okay. Me and my little black box trucking along at 49, and when I look behind me, they keep getting closer and closer. They're getting right up my arse. Every time I look in the rearview mirror, I can see his face. Even now, if I close my eyes, I can see it. The arms flailing, I can almost hear their accents as I see the amusement written across their faces. They're talking, laughing. It's like even their engine is playing a part in it, trying to intimidate me as the revs blare and they get closer and closer. I know it's stupid that I feel so threatened, but I don't feel safe. Even the giant frame of metal I'm sat in doesn't make me feel protected. Even the button that tells me no one can get into this car, even my granddad's words, none of it is enough to make me feel safe. I'm in the inside lane. They could easily overtake me if they wanted to, but they don't. That would be too easy. I don't know why, but my hands are shaking, like seriously shaking. I'm gripping onto the steering wheel, clinging on as tight as though if I wish hard enough, they'd just disappear. I want them to disappear, but they don't. It's like they're following me. Every turn I make, they follow. Each roundabout, I think I'll escape them, but there they are. For a minute, I think maybe they are following me. Maybe I accidentally hit their car without realizing, and they're following me to get my details or something. It sounds stupid, I know, but better that than the alternative fear. Part of me is waiting for it. These days, a part of me always is. I go through this little routine I'd created to keep myself calm. Check the mirror, check my speed, stare ahead, grip the wheel. I'm reciting the song lyrics in my head to keep my mind off them. Check the padlock is illuminated in red. A locked car is a safe car, a locked car is a safe car. Finally, I look in my mirror and I see the indicator. Finally. I'm going left. Theirs is signalling right. I feel the relief wash over me. We reach the roundabout and they start to pull up into the right-hand lane. Oh shit, they're pulling up next to me. I tell myself, it's okay. I keep my eyes focused on the road ahead. I keep myself focused on the road ahead. I stare straight ahead, silently wishing that maybe, just maybe, if I don't look at them, they won't look at me. But they do. I can feel both pairs of eyes on me. My skin burns where I can feel their gaze. I keep my eyes focused on the road ahead. All I want is to never see their faces again, but of course, my body betrays me, and for one brief second, our eyes meet. I feel sick.
You're probably thinking I overreacted. You're probably sat there thinking, God, she's crazy. I'm not crazy. And I know I'm not alone. It's not just me and my music. I'm not the only girl who walks with her keys between her fingers just in case. I'm not the only one who flinches at the noise of a car on an empty street. I'm not the only one having some kind of internal crisis when you notice a man walking behind you. I'm not the only one who considers crossing the street when you notice a man walking towards you. Or who has faked a phone call walking past a group of lads just to give off the impression that you're not alone and vulnerable. It can't just be me who has gotten around the corner and ran all the way home, hands shaking, nearly breaking the fucking key trying to get in the door. I'm sure there's other women who get home at night in winter and check the street is empty before getting out the car and running from the driveway to the house. Hell, I've stopped off at the shop and bought things I didn't even need just to lose someone who I thought was following me, even though I knew there was a 99.9% chance that he wasn't. Sad thing is, I don't even remember a time when I didn't feel that way. I don't remember the first time a friend told me a story of being approached by a strange man on the street or followed home. I remember the first time it happened to me, though. It's not something you forget. It was quiet, a side street, not much traffic around. I had the headphones in, but at this point in life, it wasn't because it was a coping strategy or a distraction. It was just because I enjoyed it. I had the headphones in because I love music. God, I was naive back then. I only noticed the car was following me because of the lights. It slowed all the way down, so that from far away enough it looked parked, but in actual fact, he was getting closer and closer to me. I started to run. Even back then, I was hopeless at running, but I did my best and I ran as fast as I could. He started to pick up speed. I ran all the way back to the main road and he turned the other way. For a minute or two, I thought I was safe until he came back around. Luckily for me, I'd made it to my street and I made it into the house. I told my mum, she told the school, and nothing happened. That's the problem, you see. 9 times out of 10, nothing happens. And I'm not complaining about the system. 9 times out of 10, you're worrying for nothing. Because not every man in the street wants to... But that doesn't matter. The fear's still there. I have spent so long trying to justify it all, rationalize it in my head. I'm so self-conscious about all of this anxiety. I mean, there is nothing special about me. I don't know why anyone would want to... why they'd choose me. But that doesn't change anything. The fear doesn't care about rational thought. It's just there.
I quite liked him when I first met him. My boss, I mean, he was professional and young, but he wasn't arrogant or superficial or anything like that. He seemed kind. We got on quite well most of the time. We both went through breakups at a similar time, so he was really sympathetic. I'm not sure what sparked the change in him. I mean, I don't even know if there was a change. Maybe he'd always been like that, but I'd never seen any malice in him before. It all started after my breakup, really. I don't know, maybe his really screwed him up. That's how I justified it for so long. I told myself, he doesn't mean anything by it. He's a nice guy. He's just been through a lot. And I liked my job. I mean, no one dreams of a job in admin or as a secretary. You know, when you're a kid, you normally see yourself as something extraordinary, that you'll be the boss. But as you grow up, you realise that someone has to do those jobs and you just get on with it. And there's other things in life besides my work, like my MMA. It's a hobby, a passion. And as a woman, I guess knowing some self-defense can be quite handy. But I didn't want to make a fuss. I thought it would blow over after a while. It didn't. It just got worse and worse, and still I'd make excuses. I tell myself I imagined his hand on my thigh, that he didn't make that comment, that he wasn't staring there. I started wearing longer skirts, higher necklines, just so that I was sure I wasn't doing anything to encourage it. Until today. I thought I put my outfit in the dryer for work this morning. It was still soaking wet when I came to put it on. And of course, I was running late, so I just grabbed the first thing I could find. It wasn't anything that different, just a slightly shorter skirt and a slightly more low-cut blouse. Slightly. I didn't even notice until he called me into his office to chat. That's when I realised my mistake. But then I realised my other mistake. The biggest mistake that I think I have ever made. Thinking that this was my mistake in the first place. When I went to that pole class a few weeks back, I talked a little bit about it with my sister, and she told me I should report him. And I just brushed it off. I said that I could handle it and that it wasn't a big deal. And I was sat there at my desk, thoughts running through my head about how I shouldn't have to dress differently to try and earn some respect or feel a little safer. And then I was in the bathroom. And I looked in the mirror and I noticed my hair. And I remembered the guy from uni. And suddenly I was so mad at myself for putting up with this crap for so long. I'm the girl who cut my hair to make a stand and tell the world that I didn't have to conform to their standards. And here I am, shrinking away, covering myself up and making excuses for some guy who is crossing the line just so I didn't have to give myself the label of a victim of sexual harassment. I was embarrassed. I don't know why. I was scared and ashamed, and I felt like I didn't have the courage to do anything about it. So I stormed out of the bathroom and went back to my desk. 5 minutes later, there I was, storming into his office. I slammed my letter of resignation down on his desk and I walked out. I can't describe how I felt. There's all these cliches like a weight was lifted or I'm a whole different person, but nothing can describe or give justice to the feeling of empowerment that I felt as I walked away from that office. I lied when I told you today was a good day. Today was fucking brilliant.
One last story and then I promise I'm done. Where I lived, there was this 20-mile-an-hour road, the main route into town and out of it. No one did 20 miles an hour. No one apart from me and my little black box. I always hated it when I look in my rearview mirror and see the line of traffic behind me. I could practically hear them pleading for me to speed up, but most people were polite, impatient, ticked off, not happy about being stuck behind the slow coach, but they'd wait it out, occasionally beeping their horn. But this one night, it was a Monday around mid-July, it was still light at about 7, and there's me on the way home from work, 20 miles an hour, occasionally slowing down for the monstrous speed bumps or to let a little old lady cross at the crossing. And suddenly, in my rearview mirror, there's this Corsa behind me. There's about 5 lads inside. I'm sure if you'd been the next town over, you would have heard their music. They beeped their horn the first time, and apart from nearly jumping out my skin at the noise, I wasn't that bothered. Normally, people caught on and read the sticker on my boot that said, "Black box, I'm not slow, I just can't go any faster." Normally, people would leave it there. They didn't. The horn beeped again and again and again. They were suddenly right behind me. If I'd slowed down for even a second, they would have gone into the back of me. I looked in the mirror and saw the guy driving, staring right at me. I saw them pointing and laughing and making fucking ridiculous, pointless gestures. And then they opened the windows. They stuck their heads out of the windows and started yelling.
Put your foot down, love.
Come on, faster, sweetheart.
I'll teach you what fast means,
Do you like
darling.
us being up in the
The
rear?
horn was going, the music roaring.
I'll teach
He
you
was
what
staring
fast
and they were
means.
shouting, and I was stuck there, 20 miles an hour, parked cars at either side of the road. And then they overtook me. I could hear the cheers and the jokes and the jives as they sped off down the road. Their engine was screaming at me, and the tires screeched as I watched them turn off further down. Through it all, I'd been pressing that button on the dash, the one that locks the car. I'd been repeating to myself a locked car as a safe car over and over in my head. The car was locked. I didn't feel safe anymore.
It stuck with me, clearly. I still refuse to wear shorts in the summer, no matter how hot it gets. And I don't really do crop tops or going out in bralettes or anything like that. Except there was this one day last summer where it was the hottest day on record or something like that. It was baking. And I'd been in college that day, and I remember in the morning trying to put jeans on, but before I'd even left the house, I was sweating like you wouldn't believe. So I caved and put a skirt on. I wasn't planning staying late at college. I'd got working on a project with a friend, and we ended up staying quite late. It wasn't dark, it was still summer, but it wasn't broad daylight or anything like that. It was still really humid though. And I was sat waiting for the bus to go home, and there was this group of lads hanging around the bus stop. Arseholes, a lot of them. Stood there in the middle of the street, blasting some shitty music off some crappy little Bluetooth speaker. While me and this little old lady just sat there in silence. They were doing my head in. and I noticed them looking. It started with this one guy who whispered to his friend, and then he looked, and then he nudged the others, and suddenly they were all looking. And I crossed my legs over, felt myself squirm a little. They didn't even try to be quiet about it. Even the little old lady heard as one of them started talking about what he wanted to do to me. And I sat there and I didn't say a word. I wanted to. I wanted to scream, I'm not scared of you. Because I wasn't. I wasn't scared of him or him or him. It wasn't personal. I wanted to tell him, I'm not scared of you. You are nothing. You are nothing, and I'm not scared of you. It's not about you. I'm not scared because of you. I'm scared because you are a man, I'm a woman. That's it. Don't give yourself the luxury of thinking you are anything special. But instead, I pulled my skirt down a little and I stared at the ground. I said nothing.
I've been thinking about erasure. I've lost count of how many times I've tried to click delete, but it really is irreversible. Every single time some tiny corner of my brain goes, click, recover, remember you bitch, you can't forget. I was 17 at the time. It was mid-March, I was halfway through my second year of A-levels. I've been going through a pretty horrendous breakup, and emotionally and physically I've been going through a lot of changes. I thought it couldn't get any worse, but boy was I wrong. I'd known him for years. We've been friends for forever, so us being close wasn't anything new. I felt safe with him. With all the changes I was going through, he was the one thing in my life I thought was stable. I trusted him. Delete. I was throwing this party at my house, and obviously he was there. About halfway through the night, I realised he'd been giving me drinks. At first, I thought he was just trying to help me have a good night, since I've been going through it all. But, delete. By the time I realised he'd effectively been getting me drunk, it was too late. I was a mess. I had this really bad feeling that, delete. He carried me to my room. He carried me to my own bed. Delete. I said no. Oh, I wish I could fucking delete it all. That's the thing with memories. Often, the person holding the shovel isn't necessarily trying to dig it all up. They could be doing anything, and accidentally just one little word means click, recover, you remember. Or maybe their movements happen to set off a chain reaction that causes everything to resurface, and what you tried so desperately to hide is flashing across the centre of your mind like a notification you can't get rid of. And the worst part is, half the time it's you. Half the time, you are the person holding the shovel, and you are the person that accidentally causes yourself to remember. Just when you thought you had enough reasons to help yourself.
There you go.
That's my story.
My big secret.
You probably don't get it.
I did my best to explain it to you. I don't really know if it worked.
I probably rambled too much.
You're probably sat there thinking, I need to get help, or move on, or both.
I may have got out, but I don't know what comes next.
Expecting that telling my story is going to change the world.
I don't really know what good any of this is supposed to do.
I just need to tell someone.
I wasn't trying to burden you with my baggage.
I spend so much time wondering if anyone else feels the same way.
I hope you never understand exactly what I mean. I hope you never have to.
I was just hoping that maybe I'm not alone.
I think I just needed to get some of it out there.
I think I just need to hear that I'm not crazy.
Because it's not a choice.
The fear, it's like a chain reaction.
I'm so fed up of feeling like I'm alone in this.
I didn't choose to be afraid.
It's inescapable, like a reflex.
It's like a muscle memory.
Because this is a safe space.
Do you feel it too?
Are you afraid of it too?
Do you know the fear?
Is anyone else alone too?